Thanks for listening to the Pop Culture Cosmos and the PCC Multiverse. Check out more great podcasts today on one of these awesome affiliate networks.
You're listening to a Weeby Geeks Network podcast.
You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
The Tangibound Network. Check it out. TangiboundNetwork.com. Listen to this show, the latest episode, every time.
A proud member of the Gonna Geek Network. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out all the other geeky podcasts over at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready, because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
On this week's episode, it's WandaVision, WandaVision, WandaVision. Did this series answer all of our questions? And does it get us excited for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos.
Welcome to the Pop Culture Cosmos.
And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford talking right back at you here from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, it is sincerely appreciated. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. It's our own Josh Vision of Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to check out what he's doing today at popculturecosmos.com. His awesome podcast, the Super BS Gamescast, and Topicocalypse, plus his awesome book, which you got to get right now, Congratulations, You Suck, which is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
What is up? So yesterday went to the grocery store. I had to trade out a couple of them sweet propane tanks and came across a little red box machine, you know, those things that spit movies out at you if you put your credit card in, and noticed that a certain title called Monster Hunter was on the old red box machine. So what I did is I put my card in there and boom, it spit the movie out at me. Came home later that night, turned it on, and wow. I'm about like 30 minutes into this movie, and I stopped it last night just because I would have rather slept than watch it. But now I'm committed, so I have to finish it. But it is just hot garbage. The dialogue is so bad. It is awful. Did you ever see Wind Talkers with Nicolas Cage?
Mm-hmm.
That is like the epitome of like a corny army dialogue movie, right? Like, what are you gonna do when you get home? Like stuff like that, you know. But I start watching it, it's such cheeseball dialogue that like nobody in the armed forces would ever say in their life. And the movie's just bad. So bad.
Now you know why the studio pushed it up. It was one of the few movies to get pushed up as far as its release date is concerned, because they just wanted to get rid of it and just get it out of its misery. It came out to bad reviews. It obviously had the controversy in China, and it's now on video, and a lot of people were criticizing it that it didn't come straight to on demand either. So, you know what? They just made a wrong move with every step of that movie. I think it's just time to put it out of its misery.
Well, this is Lynn Wiseman made this movie, right?
Well, this is the usual. Paul Anderson and Mila Jovovich. I mean, they're a married couple, so they do a lot of movies together. Of course, the Resident Evil movies and all that. But yeah, it's just a disappointing outing, and I think it's something that they're probably just going to go ahead and say, you know what, let's just sweep that under the rug.
But it is abundantly clear. I'm sorry, I don't mean to take a lot of time on this, but it's abundantly clear that neither of them had ever played a Monster Hunter game in their life. Like all of the great elements, and it's just so sad that this came out. This was the follow-up gaming experience to Sonic the Hedgehog, which was actually like really good.
And you wonder why video game movies get such a bad rep. There you go.
Because they're made by people who don't have any history with the video games. You know, it's like he closed his eyes and did eeny, meeny, miny, mo in like Target or something and happened to land on a Monster Hunter game. He goes, that's the one I'm making a movie out of. not knowing the one right next to it could have been Madden 21. So yeah, it's just disappointing. Anyways, I'm sorry, man. I'm good. It is Sunday. We're talking pop culture. Big things happen this week. Little vision from the Wanda, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, I'm sure. But I'm good.
Well, we are going to be talking about it, my friend. That's good to hear that you're awesome. You're psyched up. You're ready to go. I'm sorry you've had a bad experience with Monster Hunter. Then again, a lot of people would say they never actually played Resident Evil as well, all through this movie. So, but it is going to be a great episode that we have because it is WandaVision, and WandaVision for the rest of the episode as Josh shares his thoughts on WandaVision episode 9 and also the future for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if we're still excited for it. Plus, TJ Johnson, Ian Fein, and my daughter, Ellowyn Glassford, and also Marcus De La Garza are all here to talk about WandaVision episode 9 and the future, what they think is going to happen, their thoughts on the series as a whole, the whole 9 yards. This is going to be a spoilerific episode. Spoilers all over the place. It's going to hit you from right and left. So if you haven't seen episode 9, please go ahead, put us on pause, watch the episode, and then click play right afterwards because we want to go ahead and talk at length about WandaVision episode 9. My friend, I truly appreciate you stopping by because, again, it is WandaVision. So many people were excited. It broke Disney Plus again for the second episode during the series. That's a great sign for Disney Plus. A lot of people were truly wanting to see what happens in this conclusion of the series. So let's get into it without further ado because I know we don't have much time on the show for us to talk about WandaVision, but getting into it, it was a cataclysmic event at the end of the series with Agatha Harkness going off and facing off against Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch. So you saw Agnes and the Scarlet Witch face off against each other in a battle of magic. Agatha obviously wanted to try to absorb all the powers and throwing out anything that she could and using any diversionary tactic that she could to get Wanda Maximoff's power. But in the end, Wanda proved to be superior and basically went ahead and finished Agatha off, for at least for now. Whether or not it's entirely going to happen that way, I don't think so, because I think Catherine Hahn did a great job as Agatha Harkness, and I think Marvel will bring her back at some point in time, or Wanda might bring her back at some point in time if she needs it, because that's exactly what she said at the end of the episode. But your thoughts overall on this cataclysmic end of the series? Could be the end of the series as a whole. There's still no confirmation that there will actually ever be a season 2, but I want to hear your thoughts as a whole on WandaVision.
So, it was a welcomed jaunt down memory lane with the sitcoms, and then it was a pretty good side story. We had all just called her the Scarlet Witch before, but then this is her actually, I guess, becoming the Scarlet Witch. So, in essence, this is more of an origin story for her than Age of Ultron was. So what it did was it gave her a very true origin story, and then it also expanded on some things that we had been questioning in the end of Endgame, right? So they have opened up about what happened to Vision and who is Sword. They answered a lot of questions that we hadn't even asked, right? And so that is one of the things that I'm hearing a lot of people who are disappointed with this, but they didn't make any promises about what this was going to be. They just kind of gave you extra information. The whole series was like lore on the Scarlet Witch. That's what it was. They didn't promise us anything, but they delivered some things that I'm happy to have known. In the process of that, though, they did create a lot of questions, and they did kind of miss out on some plot points, or kind of skipped over some plot points.
They didn't answer some questions. I think they created some questions in the series and ended up not answering them, which I think is frustrating a lot of viewers.
Yes, there's a lot of things going on, and that we're probably gonna get these answers when Multiverse of Madness rolls around. That's the next thing Scarlet Witch is scheduled to be in. Do you want to dive into this episode, and then we can kind of revisit?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, real quick, just to get everybody up to speed, it was the cataclysmic final event of the series with Agatha Harkness going up against Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch. They face off in a magical power fest. It looked like for a little while, of course, the tropes where Agatha Harkness looks like she's going to absorb all the power of Wanda Maximoff, but Wanda Maximoff outsmarts her in the end using a protection spell that she was taught by Agatha Harkness how to use. And in the end, Agatha Harkness gets all of her power sucked up and is now imprisoned in the 1950s character that she started off as a nosy neighbor, to be possibly again utilized later on down the road by Marvel whenever they so choose, or actually in the storyline when Wanda chooses. I think some of the smaller questions didn't get answered, like for instance, Agent Franklin. We never saw him again after his initial entry into the Hex. What happened to Jimmy Woo's witness that was in witness protection? That never got answered. I think the underwhelming things as far as the engineer and the actual product that the engineer was supposed to make and how it didn't even get through the front Hex. I know a lot of people had issues with that. Darcy and the way her character finished off, as far as, yes, she was there to get the sword leader in the end, the evil sword leader. She was responsible for capturing the evil sword leader and get him imprisoned, but she basically did a quick exit right after that, and they had some like loose dialogue at the end just trying to cover for that. So that was kind of a miss as well. I mean, there were some little misses here and there that kind of detracted you from the whole story, but White Vision versus the Hex Vision going against each other as well, while the simultaneous Agatha versus Wanda Maximoff fight, that was something that was brief but interesting. But then again, all it took was Hex Vision just asking White Vision a question, a metaphorical question, and then all of a sudden you see White Vision, okay, give me all the memories back that I once had. And so Hex Vision gives him all his memories back. So now he realizes what's going on, and White Vision is no longer a tool of sword and just flies away. And that's the end of him. But basically, like I said, it was supposed to be something expanding upon the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And in some ways it did, but in some ways it kind of disappoints because of the fact that it followed a lot of television series tropes. And in the end, people have to realize that even though Disney Plus tells you that it's a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie type event, that in the end, these are TV series and they are treated as such.
Yes. You know, you talked about the tropes. This might be a cop-out, but like I feel like that is what kind of defined this series, though, because they had the whole black and white TV, the sitcom thing. Like they were basically living off of these tropes as the show went on. Like in its entirety, it kind of was a trope in itself. A lot of interesting things went down here, right? We had Agatha Harkness, like her motives are completely unclear. I think that was something that really bothered me, right? Like she wanted the power of the Scarlet Witch. I think that she was upset that she wasn't the Scarlet Witch, but what is she going to do with all this power? Right? There's no motives there. She just like wanted it for the sake of wanting it.
Well, her being there in the first place, how did she find out about this hex so quickly and the whole 9 years? That never gets really answered. It again, just a lot of little questions that were left unanswered. Kind of irritates me a little bit.
Right. And you know, for me, like, okay, so she actually did some interesting things. Like she name dropped the Sorcerer Supreme, right?
Yes,
and she's hinting that these powers are connected to Mephisto, right? Like that's kind of where Scarlet
with the Darkhold book and all that.
Yeah, the Scarlet Witch draws her energy. She draws her power from Mephisto. My theory here is that like the thing that kind of keeps her mind independent of Mephisto is the fact that she had the Mind Stone, right? That is my theory anyways. So she name drops the Sorcerer Supreme. So I think that all the witches in the Marvel universe are connected to Mephisto in some capacity. I think that he is the creator of this dark magic as it exists in the MCU. What kind of irritated me was that they didn't expand on that. Like they set this cool side story up to where they could have just swung the ball out of the park, and they didn't really revisit it. So they have this big fight, and then she finds out she's the Scarlet Witch. So we'd all just been calling her Scarlet Witch up to this point. So again, this was kind of like a true origin story for her. So we see all this go down. There's obvious ties to Doctor Strange. So that happens. Then she imprisons her back in the mind of like the 1950s neighbor, and then the hex goes away. So they never like expand on what happened there. Because if the hex went away, wouldn't that mean that Agatha Harkness was freed?
Yeah, you would think. I mean, but then you expect her to just hang around Westview for all of eternity until or unless Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, needs her, which is what she indicated to her at the end. She said, okay, you're imprisoned in this now, and if I need you, I'll call upon you. And that was pretty much it.
So obviously she's going to come back, and whether that return is in Doctor Strange or something else further down the line, we'll find out. But what doesn't make sense to me is all the other people who were under the same spell that she put Agatha,
they were all seen running out of the hex.
they were all freed from their things. So as soon as the hex like disappeared on itself, that happened.
Yeah.
To Vision, White Vision became True Vision.
Yeah.
So he passed off all of his memories back to him. And so that means that he is Vision. Like all of his memories and experiences, including what happened in the hex, are now in White Vision.
And he just zoomed away.
He just flew away because I think he knows that this version of Vision is going to die. He doesn't need the other one around to ruin whatever moment was going to happen, right? And then we saw as the hex caved in, really sad, by the way, to know that they like said goodnight to the kids, and then that was the end of them. The hex caved in. So we have Vision, right? And he gives his memories to this new Vision. So Vision is going to be back. And it's going to be Paul Bettany. Like Vision. And
the kids are going to be back because they've got to be the Young Avengers because they're lining up everything for the Young Avengers.
Right. So the kids are going to be back somehow. I mean, it's going to multiverse.
I mean, you heard it in the second, what was that second end credit scene where they're, help, mommy, help. You hear as she's reading the Darkhold book.
Yeah. So that's definitely going to come back.
Hey, this is Chad from Ghost Toasters, and you're listening to Pop Culture Cosmos Podcast.
For the latest news and information, analysis and opinions on the Los Angeles Lakers and the NBA, check out the Lakers Fast Break podcast today on wherever you get your podcasts. And you give me your overall thoughts on WandaVision. Can you give it a grade out of 10? Because that's what I'm going to ask everybody on the show.
I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay.
I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It was something that I didn't want, didn't need, didn't really care to watch when I heard about it. So I went in with zero expectations, and it was a cool side story. It's a cool side quest in the MCU. So like I don't regret having spent time with it. So I'm gonna give it an 8. Like a 7 would be that like I'm overly critical of it, but I didn't have any thoughts on it to begin with. So that's why I'm giving it an 8. There is more that could have been pulled from it. I still have quite a few questions, but then again, they never promised to answer anything when this show came out. So I can't really complain about it.
Well, I can complain a little bit about it, but I am giving it a 7 out of 10. WandaVision was a roller coaster as far as episode quality is concerned. From the first couple episodes, then it got better as it went along, and it went into a real high in episodes 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then tailed down. It had a couple lows with 7 and 8. Episode 7 was really a downer as far as an episode, and then episode 8 wasn't much better. Episode 9, we had kind of a episode, and I think that's what I'm going to rate the series overall was Had a lot of highs, had a lot of lows, but once you balance it out, it was okay. There was nothing great. It was just okay. But again, it was because of the fact that there were so many highs and so many lows when it wasn't consistent quality as far as each and every time out. A lot of the big questions that you said going into it didn't need to be answered and didn't get answered. But a lot of the little questions that they created within their own space of WandaVision, again, were not answered. That is irritating me, and that's why I can't grade it much higher. So I'm saying right now a 7 out of 10 for me.
Yes, I totally get where you're coming from. And yes, they did like within their own continuity, their own little isolated story. They did set up a lot of things and they didn't answer any of that stuff or really explain. So to me, one of the weirdest things regarding that would be Rambo, right? Like
Monica Rambeau, aka I think Photon. There was Spectrum, rumors that might be. I think it's Photon after her mom.
For those of you who don't know, she becomes the next Captain Marvel. She gains these powers, and she just...
Well, she's a Captain Marvel in the comic books. Let's get that straight. She's not in the movies. Movies, it's still going to be...
In the comic books, she's the next Captain Marvel. But they're obviously, with that end credit scene, they're setting something up for her, right? They showed the scrolls are there.
And she's already been a confirmed part of Captain Marvel, too.
Yeah.
She's going to be going up to talk to Nick, I think, on the space station, the Sword space station. I think that's her next goal, and you'll see that upcoming, that conversation, I'm sure, at some point in time down the road.
Yeah. So, what really was weird about her, they developed her into this like superhero, but they didn't she didn't seem to question any of these powers that she had. Like, it wasn't weird. It's just like waking up on a Saturday and saying, I grew 3 inches. Like, nothing seemed to change. She just kind of like went about her business without really having that like, oh, cool, I got powers moment. That was kind of weird to me. Kevin Feige trolling all of us with the Evan Peters thing, that was frustrating. Like, that was just completely unnecessary. Hats off to Mr. Feige, though. Good job on that.
Well, I thought it was very adolescent. I thought Marvel was kind of above that, but apparently they're not. As far as reducing Evan Peters' contribution to an adolescent joke was kind of overwhelming. But all right, let's finish this off with a final question I have for you. Are you still excited for what's to come in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see. I know Falcon and Winter Soldier starts up here in a couple weeks, and then a couple weeks after that show ends, Loki starts up, and then Black Widow comes out, maybe. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'm not like stoked on it, but I am curious. With Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, I was like, yes. But now I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, we'll watch it when it happens.
Well, I'm so excited for myself as far as for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because I think this takes me back to a part of the universe that I like to see, and that's the Captain America side of things, because I've always had great things to say about that. Ever since the Winter Soldier, ever since the first Captain America, I've always preferred that side of the universe. And I think because our future is coming to Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm really excited to see that part of the MCU.
Yeah. I'm really excited about that one too. I'm more excited about what's coming up here with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. Like, those are two things I'm really looking forward to. I think Shang-Chi's coming out somewhere in that neighborhood.
And maybe the Eternals someday.
Okay, so I'm reading a lot of interesting things. Heroes for Hire, right? We've talked about that. Luke Coulter from the Netflix series is allegedly playing Luke Cage again, and then Danny Rand's being recasted. But those are supposed to tie into Shang-Chi, and then they're supposed to like somehow connect like the Defenders timeline to that. I don't know, but there's a lot brewing at Marvel, especially with, you look at like Miss Marvel, Ironheart. There's a lot of like shows coming out that are supposed to be like bridging continuity, but this is a neat little thing. But I'm just curious here, how much is too much?
Yeah.
The biggest like what question here is the bad guy. They never clearly explained his motives for being what he was. And I think if they would have had a solid like backstory leading into this, like it could have changed the whole dynamic of the show. But anyways, that's my closing thought.
Hayward.
Yeah.
Hayward. So yeah, Agent Hayward's role, as the lead of S.W.O.R.D. was just basically your average, typical, everyday movie or television series type bad guy as far as a head of an organization is concerned. And his character seemingly got less and less noteworthy as the series went on, which was a disappointment because, like you said, you could have broadened his character a lot more and ended up not doing so. So that's a big disappointment there. And again, there's some little things that we can keep on talking about, both good and bad. But we want to hear your thoughts when it comes to WandaVision. Give us a grade, 1 to 10. Let us know your thoughts on WandaVision. We want to hear your thoughts and the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Are you still just as excited for what's to come in the MCU? Please share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, get ready. We're going to have a lot more opinions on WandaVision Episode 9 and the series as a whole and what's to come in the MCU, because we got Marcus De La Garza, TJ Johnson, Ian Fein, and Ellowyn Glassford coming along the way, all to tell you their thoughts on WandaVision. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos.
You're listening to the Pop Culture Cosmos.
We're back with the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here. And guess what we're talking about continuously on this episode? It is WandaVision. It is episode 9. And here again now, as I've said, as far as our WandaVision episode 9 extravaganza, is the man indeed who you know on Friday as the host of the PCC Multiverse. And maybe I'm in there as well. Each and every Friday on the Pop Culture Cosmos and all of its outlets. It is the man on Twitter and Instagram known as Castle PCC with a K. It is Marcus De La Garza. But Marcus, great to have you on talking WandaVision.
Yeah, man, it's great to be back. We just watched the episode yesterday afternoon, and it's going to be a wild ride. I just want a little 2 cents on this one and let you guys know how I felt about it. I guess, if we want to jump right into it, I'll tell you, I think this was a 10 out of 10 episode, man. I don't know how you felt about it, but it crushed for me. Oh, you're not so hot on it?
I thought the episode, the way it closed out, was pretty much the way I think the series for me as a whole. A lot of highs in the episode, a lot of lows in the episode, and a lot of stuff that went right in the middle. And when it all averages out, I think for me is right in the middle. So this whole series for me was like a 7 out of 10. Not too bad. It's worth my time. Definitely glad I watched it. And something that I hope will lead into more good things into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I would give it an 8.5 or a 9, out of 10 as a whole. This episode to me was really what I needed to tie everything together. It gave me the footprint that I wanted for the future. It wrapped up a lot of questions for us. It was a great way to tie up all the loose ends. And really, it ties up the emotional loose ends that Wanda's dealing with in this entire series, right? To a certain extent, we're getting things put in place so that maybe Falcon and the Winter Soldier might see a little vision, a white vision quest.
Are you sure it tied up all the loose ends? Because I thought there's still a lot of loose ends out there.
It tied up loose ends in the way that Marvel does, right? Like you still have a whole Pandora's box worth of things that need to be discussed. But
let me just tell you, Agent Franklin's still sitting and catering, waiting for his callback. I'm just going to let you know.
Gerald, I just want to say that I think we did the best we could to wrap this up. As far as an emotional storyline, right, for Wanda, there's a lot of stuff that this set the stage for moving forward. And that's what's the most important thing here for WandaVision. We've got the potential for Vision to show up anywhere we really want him to at this point, right? Yeah. He could show up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He could show up in anything, dude. The writing of the final episode really set the stage, right? The goodbye that they shared, isn't the first time.
You're saying that they got the big picture, even though maybe some of the little picture stuff they didn't get, but the big picture stuff they hit, and they hit for you, and that's what's most important.
Yeah, they did. And, that whole goodbye, this isn't the first time we've said goodbye. This won't be the last time we say hello. That sets the stage. They're coming back. They're going to do something. They're going to get back together and have another shared storyline somewhere. Whatever happens, I feel like we put this in a really good spot. Monica Rambeau, though, I'm excited to see what happens with her because we've got a little bit of calling to the stars via some Nick Fury action, I think.
Yep, she wants to talk to Nick. I was kind of a little bit disappointed in that. The reason why is because she just could have gotten a call or something on her cell phone that says, hey, I need to talk to you, or we're going to send a spaceship for you or something like that. It could have been done in a different fashion. I wish that cutscene would have been saved for something that sets up Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I was disappointed at that. The second one, as far as the cutscene is concerned, I thought that was okay. I think now that it's been talked about a little bit more, maybe it leads a little bit more into Doctor Strange 2 than what I originally thought when I watched it. So I thought that was okay. I thought with Monica Rambeau, her Photon character, I was hoping she would be a more important focal point of the episode 9. She kind of wasn't, but I think that she has got a great future because I'm excited to see where her future goes. I was just thinking that maybe everything that could have explained to her in that cutscene could have been explained to her within the confines of that episode, and they could have set up Falcon and Winter Soldier just a little bit more. But then again, you reminded me of this, that Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to be the lead series, and WandaVision was supposed to be number 2. So maybe that's why we couldn't see a cutscene, of course, but I'm excited for the future of Monica Rambeau.
Me too. We've got 2 divergent storylines coming out of this series. You've got whatever's going to happen to Wanda plus Vision, and then you've got whatever's happening with Monica Rambeau. I have a feeling we're going to come back and talk about WandaVision maybe 5 years from now, 7 years from now, and talk about how this set the stage for the next chapter of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Well, you said it answered a lot of the big questions. Were there any questions that left unanswered for you that you wanted answered? Maybe hopefully a season 2, if it ever comes to fruition, could answer for you.
There's some of the minor characters that I was interested in. Darcy, number 1. There's some of the minor characters that I didn't have a ton of resolution on that I would love to hear how their lives continued on. I want to know what happens to Agnes while she's trapped in her little new lifestyle. So does Wanda ever come back and have to use her as a point of reference?
I'm sure. Catherine Hahn killed it as Agatha Harkness. She enjoyed it and basically reveled in that role. I mean, it looks like she was truly having a blast in that role. And I think Marvel is going to be one of those things where it's the Loki effect, where we only thought of her in this context, but she did such a great job. We're going to have to expand her role going forward. And the thing is, she's not trapped or bound by the confines of Westview, because Westview is no longer in a hex.
Right.
So she could literally go anywhere, although she will be stuck as the 1950s neighbor unless Wanda Maximoff says otherwise.
Some of these minor characters are who I really want to see develop more in season 2, or maybe even have their own little storylines in other movies and TV shows. From a health perspective, Marvel's in a great spot. They've done a lot to develop themselves, after taking all of 2020 off. I think we're in a really good spot. We know that WandaVision has set the stage for the future, and I'm cool with it, man. I'm ready to go for all the long haul stuff on Marvel.
But one last question I ask you before we head on out, my friend, and that is this. Are you as excited, less excited, or more excited about the MCU going forward after the events of WandaVision?
I am more excited, and it just feels like we set the stage for the future, and I think we're at a good spot for the MCU. We have the ability to tell some great stories over the next year.
So if you were to give it that hard 8 or hard 9, what would you give it? Can't give me an 8 or 9. Got to give me an 8
I can't give you an 8.5. I can't give you an 8.
No, it's got to be a solid number.
I would give it a 9. This is a show that you could bring a new Marvel fan in that's never seen some of the back stuff and just plop them right in, and I think they'd be okay moving forward.
There you go. All right. It's my good friend, Marcus De La Garza. You hear him along with me as we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture every Friday right here on the PCC Multiverse on radio stations worldwide and wherever you get your podcasts. Well, Marcus, my friend, I appreciate you coming out of the beach.
Yeah.
Coming out of the water, coming off the bike, and being able to go ahead and explain to us everything that you feel and you thought about WandaVision Episode 9 and going forward with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as you and I will go into more depth and more detail in coming episodes as far as Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, the What If series, and so much more. I'm looking forward to experiencing the MCU and hearing your continual thoughts right here on the Pop Culture Cosmos.
Video game box art, the stories behind the covers, in which we talk to the illustrators and artists who are responsible for gaming's most iconic images. Don't forget to check out Video Game Box Art, the stories behind the covers, celebrating gaming's most iconic images from the people who created them. This and many more from Rob McCallum Films.
All right, and we're back on the program. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. And of course, with the end of WandaVision, we have to go ahead and get the thoughts and opinions of everyone who was part of our coverage and sharing their thoughts throughout the series. So first up is a good man indeed. You got to go ahead and check out his episodes that he was on Wednesday on our special PCC Extra, where he was talking about WandaVision Episode 8 and compare his thoughts of what he thought would go on in Episode 9. And then also on Friday's show where he talked about Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, it is TJ Johnson. And TJ, glad to have you back. Your thoughts on WandaVision Episode 9?
Well, WandaVision Episode 9 was a very, very mixed bag of emotions or thoughts. Thoughts is a better word for me. I enjoyed the episode. I thought that, while obviously not answering every question that we all had, and you and I had talked about that pretty extensively, we had a good idea that it wasn't going to answer everything. I don't think either of us realized how much it wasn't going to answer, how much it truly was going to leave us hanging with. But I think some of the answers that we got were answers. Let's talk about first things first. Is it just me, or was anybody else really upset about the fake Pietro really being just Rick Boner?
Just a dude.
Just a guy. And I get the idea of playing with us and playing with our expectations and subverting said expectations. I think when you have this idea that there's this huge continuity and there's this huge universe getting ready to open up with the multiverse of madness and having the ability to jump from one continuity as far as the X-Men Marvel Fox continuity to the MCU, you have this excitement, you have this charge about wanting to see that and seeing that come to fruition. And I think Marvel's either genius or just jerks about the fact they completely took those expectations and that excitement and that buildup and the thought process that we as consumers have when we think of that kind of stuff and saying, oh, yeah. Nope, just kidding. Gotcha.
It was a letdown. I think that's one of the biggest parts of the MCU fans. But there were several things that they threw out there that they got people excited for that they let us down on with this series. And I think that's something that they need to go ahead and check themselves on, because I know Marvel stuff doesn't stink for a lot of people out there, but Marvel stuff did stink on occasion here. But overall, there were some positive aspects, I would assume, from WandaVision that you took from it, correct?
But as far as if we want to jump into the positives, I enjoyed the battle. I thought her kind of really coming into her own, kind of letting go and outsmarting Agatha at her own game, because she made it very clear that, once you create once you put the runes, only the witch that creates the runes in the space can use their magic. And little did she realize that she wasn't missing. She was aiming for the different sides of the hex. So it was a pretty cool thing to see play out. And it was really cool to see her kind of really take on power and really, while not understanding it, almost let herself go to what could potentially be this devastating force. And this bittersweetness that we had with Vision, I think that I enjoyed the way it ended from the standpoint of, yes, we're going to see more Vision. Obviously, it's become very clear that Vision's not going anywhere, especially with Wanda being such a huge part of the Marvel universe moving forward. You have to have Vision kind of go along with that. And it was really cool to see the emotional aspect of her connection with Vision and how he's like, I was just a memory, who knows what I'll be next. And it was very, very touching to see Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen work together in that capacity, because we really haven't gotten a chance to see them very intimate, if you will, outside of the briefness that was Avengers Infinity War. That was really the only intimacy that we get to see with them. So to be able to see Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany in these roles, experience that level of human interaction that we haven't gotten to see yet, but we're supposed to believe that they're this wonderful couple. It was actually pretty cool, and it was very, very much deserved. It took a while for us to get there, but I'm grateful that we got there. I do wish that there was a little bit more definitive what happens next in regards to Vision, in regards to Wanda and Vision, so to speak. I don't think any of us expected a happy ending, especially from my Game of Thrones fans out there. They know that if you've been paying attention, it's not going to end well. And while we didn't expect it to end well, they didn't stick to their guns. And here's what I mean by that. I was expecting to see the death of Vision, right? But it really wasn't, though. It wasn't the death of Vision. It was really just this idea that, okay, well, I'll bring you back whenever I really want to, like this potential form of you might be gone. But I mean, Wanda clearly has the power to bring whatever version of Vision back she wants at any given time. So when you threaten to really tug at our heartstrings as the consumer, right? It's important to, from an artistic standpoint to me, to see that through. What they did is they gave themselves an out. So if you're going to tell us that you're going to kill off Vision, or if we're going to have this expectation of killing off Vision, but then you really don't, it's like, well, this emotional, what was the point of WandaVision? Just, while I enjoyed the show, it really was just a bridge. It was just a bridge into the multiverse of madness. It was just a bridge into Spider-Man 3. It was just a bridge into this Marvel Phase 4. But it really didn't serve a purpose other than to kind of flesh out Elizabeth Olsen and her character and who she is going to become moving forward. So if you take it and enjoy it for the microcosm that it was fine. But if you kind of had this idea that there was going to be some explanation, some type of definitive ending, then I'm sure you walked away from that finale a little more than disappointed. You probably walked away from that finale frustrated. And it's okay. I get it, especially for fans who may have just started watching that and have jumped in. Like you and I talked about a few episodes prior to, people that are watching it because of the fact that it's on Disney Plus and being able to, they're jumping in points to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They could be very frustrating in that regard. But for us that know that there's a bigger story to be told, while it's might be a little annoying that we've waited 9 weeks to get to this point where we still really don't have any definitive answers, I think Marvel has done enough legwork and done enough great work in the last 11, 12 years that we can say, okay, well, we're riding with you, but that wasn't okay. Like I still trust you. I'm still gonna sit passenger side with you, but that wasn't cool. So we take the good with the bad. Was it great? No. Was it terrible? No. If I had to give it a number out of 10, it'd probably be about a 7.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you next. So. Yeah, it'd be about a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 for sure. All right. Well, one last question I ask you, my friend, because again, you're going to be part of our coverage going forward as Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki and all that. I know I'm going to get these DMs, so I'm just going to include you into all this as far as it's even if I don't say it, I'm going to get these DMs from you. Gerald, I got to talk Loki. I got to talk about the what if. I got to talk about Hawkeye coming down the road.
I do, man. What can I say? I just enjoy being a part of the pop culture cosmos, Gerald.
Well, we enjoy having you here, my friend. But before we head on out, I wanted to ask you this. Your thoughts on where we stand now with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Are you still as excited for the MCU after WandaVision?
I am, but for different reasons than maybe other people are. So some of my favorite Marvel characters are obviously some of the mainstays that we've had in the first three phases of the MCU. So Captain America, Black Panther. I wasn't such a huge Iron Man fan, and I think that Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Tony Stark, Iron Man, has really catapulted his status to me, as far as him going from a B-list superhero to a top-tier A-list superhero. But I'm excited because I'm curious to see where we go from here. Obviously, I'm excited to see the next Blade film. I'm excited to see how they incorporate the mutants into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We thought we had the answers with the multiverse here in WandaVision, and sure enough, Kevin Feige said, no, I'm in control. I'm the puppeteer. I'm pulling the strings. You guys are just here for the ride. So I'm excited to just kind of see where we go from here. So yes, I'm excited. I'm excited to see how this all continues to move forward. I'm excited to see how we hold on to some of these characters that, quote unquote, didn't really die in Endgame, and some of the characters who did die in Endgame. I can't wait to see the Black Widow film whenever they release it, however they release it. I'll be excited to see that. Excited to see where that places Black Widow in regards to moving forward in the MCU. There's just so much more potential now, now that it got the Fox deal done, and now that it's set in stone, there's the sky's really the limit to introduce the Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom, the mutants. I'm really looking forward to that. So yes, I'm still just as excited. They've earned my admiration. They've earned my trust in saying, they've got a great method for telling stories overall. So yes, I'm still excited to see what happens in Phase 4 and beyond. Very much so.
Well, we'll see what happens going forward in a couple weeks as Falcon and the Winter Soldier hits Disney Plus. We're going to be covering it all for you. TJ, you're welcome to come back anytime to talk that, Loki, and so much more as the Marvel Cinematic Universe keeps on getting extended in not all the ways we always expected, but still it gets extended nonetheless. But TJ, I thank you so much for everything you've contributed over the course of WandaVision, and I look forward to whatever your thoughts are on the MCU and, of course, anything in pop culture right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.
If you need your video game fix, be sure to check out Retro City Games. Located in Town Square on Las Vegas Boulevard or in Henderson, Nevada, Retro City Games has the cure for all your video game vices. Retro games and games for current consoles, Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation, Xbox, and more. Retro City Games has all the staples from any library and some highly collectible offerings too. So pick up a few games today at Retro City Games in Town Square on Las Vegas Boulevard or in Henderson, Nevada. Retro City Games is your video game metropolis.
We continue our thoughts on WandaVision right here for you at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But no, Ian Fein is here from Hunnick Queen and the Hunnick Outcast. You got to go ahead and check them out on Facebook at Hunnick Queen and Hunnick Outcast. And Noah, want to hear your thoughts on the final episode of the season and maybe the series as a whole for WandaVision.
Well, I think it's going to end the series for her watching old sitcoms. We may see another mini-series because I don't think they're going to do like these 10-minute videos that they did on DVD before. So they're doing a different way to give the characters enough time to breathe. What's going on with them? You have like these 9-episode, 30 to 45-minute episode spots. That's not terrible. As for Vision and White Vision, well, how else are you going to bring Vision back? Which made the most sense, that Hex Vision gave his memories to White Vision, so he pretty much just transferred everything, like a flash drive. As for Agatha Harkness, her origin is a little bit different in the comics, what happens to her in the comics. Okie dokie artichoke, what happens with her. As for...
Because she's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really dies in comics anyway, and apparently because...
I'm just going to say this, that her performance reminds a lot of people and reminds me a lot of what happened with Loki, where you only thought of Loki as far as one picture, but his performance was so good, they've expanded his role. And now, I don't think you would have told Kevin Feige back in 2011 when Thor came around that, hey, by the way, Loki's going to become a major part of the MCU. there's a possibility that Agnes Harkness could as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, Loki's getting his own series, and it's already been greenlit, I think, for 2 seasons.
Yeah,
so
and Catherine Hahn has done such a great job. You could see that possibly for her as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure she's going to find a way either in Far From Home, in an end credit scene, or in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So we haven't seen the last of Agnes, and you can kind of tell because the way that she gave her lines and everything, she was under mind control where you can see that she was forced. Like her mask was trying to break through, that she was really pissed off what was happening, that she became Agnes. As for the town, though, no, I didn't think there was going to be closure. They're too traumatized and stressed about what happened. So whatever Wanda did or didn't do, they're not going to forgive her right away. And they probably will never forgive her, which is understandable. As for Sword or that agent, whatever his name was, he's kind of like the Walter Peck of the MCU. So I don't really see he's going to be coming back anytime soon. As for Monica Rambeau, they're not done with Monica Rambeau yet, which is fine because I like this actor. As for
Teyonah Parris did a great job during the series. I look forward to seeing more of her as well. Again, I am looking forward to seeing what she's going to be talking about with Nick Fury up on the Sword Space Station, and then, of course, Captain Marvel, too.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed that Nick Fury didn't make an appearance.
I think a lot of people are thinking the same with you as far as the leader of Sword, Tyler Hayward, was just basically a typical bad guy role that you see it as far as whatever.
He was Walter Peck, yeah.
A lot of loose threads that still didn't get tied up, but overall on the series, I want to hear your grade. I know you're very high in the series, and so far we've heard from Josh, who gave it an 8, Marcus, who gave it a 9, and me, who gave it a 7. So where do you fall in line as far as the score is concerned?
I'm giving this one an 8. It's a B series, which is not bad.
No.
Now with this Marvel television universe on Disney Plus, you're getting characters more time to breathe and not going back to comics and other theories from other universes, so that helps out a bigger deal.
But the overarching thought of what's going to happen in the future, you do see a future for Vision, you do see a future for Wanda in the MCU, and ultimately that's what's most important.
And of course the book, because I do know it's their version of the Necronomicon. Yeah,
the Darkhold.
The Darkhold. Yeah, so again, that's where Doctor Strange will come in. Now, whether or not Wanda will fulfill her destiny and become a villain, because she was in the comics, and we do know in House of M that's where it's pretty much going, that's going to be 1/6, half dozen if it happens in this universe. We still don't know what's going to happen with Wanda. And she may turn on Vision anyway, and that may be even more heartbreaking. We don't know what they're going to do in the MCU or the MTU. But for now, it's a nice little diving board of how Marvel should do their TV series. This is how you should do it, and it's being done rather well. And I can't wait for Falcon, and I can't wait for Loki, as I said 200 billion times. And I'm sure they're going to find other series for other characters, too.
My friend, it's been great talking to you, but you already hinted at what I was going to ask you with my last question, and that is, are you as excited, more excited, or not as excited about what's going on with the MCU? And I can tell by the smile on your face that I think it's more excited about the MCU than ever after the events of WandaVision.
Yeah, I thought I was done with it, and they just pulled me right back in. But you know what? When it came to Civil War, Bucky and Falcon had chemistry in Civil War. And I was kind of disappointed that they were going to be the background, and so many people have complained about these actors and characters. But I think when they're together, they work off well. So I'm glad they were either going to get another movie or this TV series. And I think it's going to work a lot better as a TV series. It feels very 80s. It almost feels like I would love to see an A-team with the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a way. But I think these two are going to work out. It's going to be like a Jake and the Fat Man or Cagney and Lacey or whatever. I don't know why, because I grew up watching those series.
It's going to be a buddy comedy for sure. They're going to,
it's going to work. Yeah, I like these actors and I enjoy these characters. So yes, I was stoked. I'm glad that even with COVID and everything, we're still getting it this year. Loki, I'm salivating over because I'm so glad that Tom Holland. Every time I keep thinking he's dead, never coming back. Hiddleston. What am I? Yeah. Tom Holland. Why am I thinking of Tom? Oh, yeah, Spider-Man. I can't get him off my mind either. Yeah. Tom Hiddleston, by the way, as Loki, I thought that every time he died. This time he definitely was not coming. And then we saw what happened in Endgame. And again, since they are pushing those seasons, I am really happy. And I'm kind of curious. It may be the MC's version of what Fox and Netflix did with Lucifer. I don't know. But I am ecstatic to see what they're going to do with him going solo now. And yeah, he can't really keep, taking over Asgard because it's gone. And that's fine, because we know that sometimes it's over Oklahoma. That's okay too. I'm never going to go there. But I am really curious to see what he's going to do. It's kind of like those Joker comics that came out in the 70s. I'm really curious. And I guess as for if Black Widow does come out this year, which they said it might, I'll pay the $30 on Disney Plus to see it. I think we all will.
Well, we're finding out if that's going to be the case with Raya and the Last Dragon, and we could find that out in May or maybe later if that happens for Black Widow.
Yeah, but I will say this much. WandaVision, #take that Wonder Woman 84. And might I add that I think that these actors, and by these actors, Paul Bettany, Catherine Hahn, Elizabeth Olsen, I don't know if you saw that segment on the Jimmy Fallon show where she was being interviewed by Jimmy. They were going through different decades from the 50s. I'm telling you, these three actors definitely need a Emmy nomination. So does this series. If they gave it to Mandalorian, they definitely need to give it to WandaVision. I think Elizabeth Olsen, Han, and Bettany definitely deserve something for what they did for their performances, not just another paycheck. Bravo. I want more.
It is Ian Fein. You got to check him out on Facebook and be part of one of his amazing groups, the Hunnick Queen or the Hunnick Outcasts. Be part of those groups today on Facebook. Well, my friend, it's been great talking to you about WandaVision. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on Falcon and Winter Soldier and more coming up in the MCU, plus Justice League and so much more pop culture. You're always a great part of the show and a great part of the pop culture cosmos.
You're listening to the Pop Culture Cosmos. Don't touch that dial. Wait, do people still use dials?
And last but certainly not least, coming up on today's program to share her thoughts on WandaVision Episode 9 is the pop culture expert in the Glassford household. It is my daughter, Ellowyn Glassford. And Ellowyn, you and I have watched the entire 9-episode arc. And as we've discussed, and as people have heard already throughout the entire episode, they've heard all the details, they've heard all the spoilers, they've heard all our complaints, and they've heard all of our praise for the WandaVision series. But I want to hear your take because you've been so gracious with your time week after week after week. I want to hear your final thoughts on episode 9 before we head on to another part of the MCU.
I think the finale of WandaVision did a good job giving us an end to the story they were telling. Being honest, I was slightly disappointed that we didn't get the big reveals that we were all hoping for, I think, as fans. But when you take a step back and realize that they were telling the story of Wanda and her grief and her love for Vision, they really did a nice job of ending that story and giving closure to the whole arc, which I think is really what was most important about the finale.
And it did sit around WandaVision. Of course, they had to go ahead and make sure everything was laid out for those two going forward, that hopefully they will, meaning Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, and Vision, have a future going forward in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They did find an out with White Vision getting the memories and getting the thoughts of the Hex Vision, and now he has knowledge of exactly who he is and where he came from. Plus, you see Wanda Maximoff now studying the Darkhold. Now she's perusing through the dark magic of the Darkhold as we speak. So it's setting itself up for her involvement into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. If you were to give the series a full grade, I mean, we've heard already Josh's thoughts, and he gave it a 8. Ian Fein gave it a 9. TJ Johnson gave it a 7, and Marcus De La Garza gave it a 9, and I gave it a 7. So it's in that 7, 8, 9 range. Where do you stand as far as your overall grade for WandaVision?
I'll say 8. I have to remove a couple of points. because of some big things. Like, for example, the whole engineer storyline that we were kind of all wondering about, that went nowhere. And also Paul Bettany trolling with us, saying that there was a huge cameo and it was just himself. So,
And then Evan Peters, which you were so high on.
Evan Peters' whole reveal with this character, I am not in love with. So I really just don't like how they did that whole thing with Evan Peters. But I have to remove a couple points for those. But overall, the series was really good. It was written very well, and I think it's one of the best shows story-wise that's been on TV in a bit.
Well, there you have it indeed. It is my daughter, Ellowyn Glassford. I'm sure you're going to go ahead and catch her on upcoming shows talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, and so much more. Are you more excited, less excited, or as excited for what's to come in the Marvel Cinematic Universe based upon what you watched in WandaVision?
I'm actually more excited. I'm so excited for the future of the Marvel Universe. We've got so much good stuff coming, and WandaVision was a really cool way to start off Phase 4. And after not having Marvel for a year, it was really nice to have Marvel back and for us to all be able to enjoy it and talk about it again.
Absolutely. And I look forward to watching more Marvel, both on TV and on film, the movies, the shows, the whole 9 yards. And I hope to speak to you more in the coming weeks about all the things that are going on with Marvel and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Marvel Television Universe, whatever part of that Marvel universe it may be. It is my daughter, Ellowyn Glassford. Ellowyn, I thank you so much for talking about this. Any last thoughts on WandaVision before we head on out?
I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I hope that we can realize the good of WandaVision and the beautiful story that they told. It was sort of tragic, but I hope we can kind of move past some of those plot holes and our high expectations, and that we can just remember this as a really good series that we all enjoyed and got to talk about as a Marvel fandom together.
Once again, it is my daughter, Ellowyn Glassford. You can catch her in upcoming episodes of the Pop Culture Cosmos and talking about all the great things that are coming up in the not too distant future in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, Ellowyn, it's been great having you on again. I truly appreciate your thoughts of WandaVision as we went ahead and talked about all the great episodes the past few weeks. And I cannot thank you enough for not only being on these past shows, but also looking ahead, being on future episodes right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. Check out what's been going on with the Pop Culture Cosmos show and the PCC Multiverse.
I see the potential for basically like another Netflix kind of paradigm shift where here comes this other major player. They have a ton of resources. Apple could change the way that entertainment is consumed.
They say it's the only time this year that you'll have stars from each brand battling each other, and we know it's not going to be the case, but they like to say that, and more power to them, I guess.
Well, it's a big first step, bringing all those superheroes together. There were definitely some parts of the movie that I really enjoyed, and then there were some parts that I thought just kind of fell short of expectation.
Part of it has to be something to do with how it's being promoted, and this is a thing where audiences do not agree with critics.
That's the Pop Culture Cosmos show.
And the PCC Multiverse, every week on Apple Podcasts.
And over a dozen of your favorite streaming and podcasting options. And we're back at the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford along with Josh Peterson. Want to thank so much TJ Johnson, Ian Fein, Ellowyn Glassford, and Marcus De La Garza. Check us out, Marcus and I, coming up on Friday to talk all the latest and greatest news and trends in pop culture coming up on this Friday's PCC Multiverse. But before we head on out, my friend, it's been a great episode, and I cannot thank you enough, as always, for joining. But any last thoughts on WandaVision before we head on out?
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, it was a nice return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The first few episodes started out a bit rocky, though they were enjoyable. The switch from sitcom to, what's actually going on in the world of Marvel was a little bumpy. And then, there's a lot of things that were explained and then not explained. So my hope is that they're going to tie up loose ends as these next few series go on. And if not, I feel good for having known this piece of television viewing. And if this is like the standard set for the Marvel series coming out on Disney Plus, I think that they're in a good place.
The excitement level for the Marvel Cinematic Universe is obviously there. People were just so entranced as far as each and every episode. And on episode 7 and 9, broke Disney Plus upon its debut on that streaming platform. So a lot of people were excited to see how WandaVision ended up. And I know a lot of people are excited for what's to come in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great
I'm Lifelong Ensign Charles Kelso.
I'm Federation Envoy Keith Johnson.
I'm Ferengi Counselor Veronica Dashel.
And I'm Andorian Mess Hall Cook R. Alan Seiler.
And we're the crew of Earth Station Trek. Join us for
episode reviews,
discussions of themes and characters,
and all the news from across the Trekverse.
Our logs cover the full gamut of Star Trek.
From the groundbreaking original series
to the future of the franchise on Paramount Plus,
with lots of stops in between.
Join our crew aboard Earth Station Trek for your regular podcast escape into the Trekverse.
Go bold or go home!
You're listening to a Weeby Geeks Network podcast.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Tangent Bound Network. Let your voice be heard. TangentBoundNetwork.com.
Thanks so much for downloading the Pop Culture Cosmos, and stay tuned as more great podcasts are on the way. Thanks again for listening to us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.